Hieronymous Grabiner was not okay. He was doing his best to pretend that he was okay for Tori's sake, and the truth was that he was able to believe that he was okay when she was there beside him. However, the first night she was away, he began to have night terrors. Although he and Tori exchanged multiple letters a day, it seemed he could do nothing to stop his subconscious fears from taking over. As soon as he closed his eyes to fall asleep that night, he couldn't help but open them again a few short hours later when he felt someone crawling on top of him. He blinked his eyes open to see Violet crawling towards him over the blankets, a small smirk playing on her lips. "Hey there, hero." "Go away." He shuts his eyes as he wills himself to wake up. "You're not real." "Are you sure about that?" Violet starts to kiss his neck, and Hieronymous physically resists the urge to roll his hips upwards into hers as he turns his face away. "We are no longer together," Hieronymous says, more to himself than to her. "I am with Tori. I love Tori. You are just a manifestation of my repressed guilt and nothing more." Violet pouts. "Do you think Tori is going to give you what you want? She can't give you children. The man who always wanted a family is never going to have one." "Tori is all the family I need," he insists. "We don't need children to be a family." "No, but you want them," she continues. "2 boys and a girl. Isn't that right?" As he closes his eyes, he can see them again, sitting around the kitchen table. That hadn't been real, and moreover, that was what Tori wanted. He didn't care how many children they had or what gender they were. He just wanted a chance to be a father, a better role model than his father ever was to him. She has a point. The Grabiner line needs an heir, Hieronymous. Hieronymous opens his eyes to see Aloysius standing at his bedside. Between Violet on top of him and his father standing directly beside him, it was clear that this was one of the strangest nightmares he had ever experienced in his life. "I am going to wake up now," Hieronymous says to himself, as if saying it would make it true. "You already had everything you wanted," Violet chides him. "You already had an adoring lover. You already had children. You already had everything you wanted. Why would you give that up?" "Because any kind of real life is better than a dream," Hieronymous insists. "I already told you that you need to find a new wife, one who is better suited to address your needs," Aloysius continues. "Someone from a noble bloodline that can propel the Grabiner name to power and restore our former glory. What is going to become of our noble legacy now?" "I don't care," Hieronymous says testily. "I really could not give a damn about upholding the honor of our family name." "Because you do not yet have children," Aloysius counters. "Everything that you do now reflects on them. What kind of legacy do you plan to leave for them to inherit?" Hieronymous pauses for a moment. The night before, he had honestly considered just leaving his responsibilities in England to join Tori in Italy. But his father, as much as he absolutely hated to admit it, did have a point. If he didn't take his duties seriously now, what kind of legacy was he going to leave for his children to inherit? Even though his relationship with Tori fueled a lot of the new rumors surrounding him, there were still people he met with that had not seen him since he was a teenage boy. Those people remembered who he had been. Those people remembered how he had so recklessly charged into the other world with Violet and abandoned his noble responsibilities. How was he ever going to prove himself to be more than the rumors that defined him? He was going to have to do something, but he didn't know what he could do. It had to start now, though. It had to start with his day-to-day tasks. He had to show that he could be present and accountable. He had to show that he could be relied upon and trusted. He had to show that he was a true man of integrity and that he was a far more upstanding moral character than his father ever was. He missed Tori. He missed her with every fiber of his being, but he had to do this for her too. He did not want Tori to be forced to carry the burden of trying to defend him from his past transgressions. He wanted Tori to go out and live her own life, independently of him, and she was finally getting a chance to do that. After all, once they did truly entertain the topic of children, he doubted that Tori would leave their side. Tori was fiercely devoted by nature, and he could imagine her wanting to spend every second of the day caring for them and making sure their needs were attended to. For a moment, a new emotion bubbled up in his chest, and he realized that this was jealousy. Maybe this was why he had been insisting that children were still a few years down the line. Maybe this was why he didn't seem to have a problem with Tori's inability to become pregnant. If they did have children, Tori would spend all of her time caring for them. And if they occupied all of her time, when would he ever get a chance to spend time with her alone? Maybe he was overthinking it, but he found himself disappointed by his own thoughts. Maybe the situation would be reversed. Maybe he would be the one who would want to spend all of his time with his children, and Tori would be the one longing for his lost company. Somehow, though, he doubted it. He still remembered how he felt about his children in his dream. They had been there, but he had not felt any real tangible attachment to them. Was it because they hadn't been real? Or was it simply because he lacked nature's paternal instincts? Maybe he was just a heartless person by nature, and that was why it had been so easy for him to take their lives in his fruitless effort to awaken himself. He remembered when Tori had told him that she was sure that he would never hurt a child, but he had. His own offspring, in fact. It had been in a desperate attempt to awaken himself, of course, but he had still committed the act. He had told Tori about that long ago, but he was sure that she had probably put it out of her mind. So, should he remind her? Should he tell her that he was having second thoughts about being a father? He wasn't even really sure that he was having second thoughts. Ever since their conversation with Virginia, it just sat in the back of his mind like a heavy stone, and he could not rid himself of its weight, no matter how hard he tried. Eventually, he blinked his eyes open again to see the morning sun shining in through the curtains. He hadn't even realized that his thoughts had strayed away from his nightmare. The figments of Violet and his father were gone, having retreated back into his subconscious where they belonged. Their appearance obviously meant that he was struggling to deal with something, but he couldn't be sure what. Maybe Violet represented the domestic life he wanted, and his father represented his noble responsibilities. Perhaps he was split between having a life with his family and making sure that he left behind a suitable legacy for his children to inherit. After all, did he want a child, or did he want an heir? What kind of person did he want to groom them into? Considering he barely knew how to define himself as a person, he was not sure how he could attempt to shape a child with any form of concrete identity. But if there was anyone who had a clear sense of self, it was Tori, and he could not deny that he needed her by his side now. He wanted her to have fun in Italy. He wanted her to develop her independence. Tori wanted to help people, and he could not hold her back from that. But, at the same time, she could not return home soon enough.